Welcome everyone to the Better Impact Volunteer Impact webinar. Today we'll be looking at is volunteer impact the right software for you, for your volunteer organisation. My name is Didier. I'm the software sales advisor at Better Impact. So I've been working over 10 years in technology, helping and advising organisations on their digital platform. I've spent the last year advising a diverse range of organisations on how to make the most of Better Impact and how to manage change for a volunteer management system. I've got extensive knowledge of the Better Impact software modules and how organisations can transition with ease and get the most of the system. Also joining me today, big thanks to Andy Fryer. He's our operations manager in Oceania. Andy's been with the organisation for 15 years in different roles over the years, and a big catalyst for getting the software over to Australia and New Zealand. Andy will also be answering some questions in the chat room. So if you do have any questions that come up, feel free to ask in the chat. Andy will answer all of those. We'll also have a question time at the end if you've got anything you want to ask on the mic. Me and Andy can help you with a couple of those questions as well. Now, what we'll be looking at today, so a couple of common problems facing volunteer service teams. We're going to have a quick program assessment. So essentially 3 questions. We'll be asking everyone to answer in the chat, just so everyone can get an idea of similar issues that are faced in organizations. We're going to look at why the right software tools matter. We're going to have a look at a high-level overview of volunteer impact. And then at the end of the session, I'll have a link for you for your PDU certificate, just for your attendance today. So you've got proof of that attendance if needed. Now, very common issues faced by a lot of organizations is too much data entry, using things like Excel, spreadsheets, that kind of thing. Gets very messy. Using disconnected tools to do your job. That can be using too many tools, trying to do the same thing and trying to manage different tools all in one. Not enough time to lead and engage with your volunteers. So obviously a volunteer management tool like Better Impact, we aim to free up some time for the administrators, the coordinators to spend more time with your volunteers. Finding affordable tools leadership will approve. We totally understand the approval process. Some of you may have to jump through some hoops. Your IT teams, your boards, management, totally understand that. We're very transparent with the costings of our software. And we make that process, nice and easy, give you a clear quote, proposals, whatever's needed in that process to help you get through that and get that approved. Insufficient security of your confidential volunteer data. Obviously, that's a huge point with organisations around Australia and New Zealand, is that security and privacy. Of course, Australia has been through some cyber security attacks with Optus, Medicare, Medibank, and a lot of other organisations that's been in the news. So it's been a major talking point of a lot of organizations, and that is definitely our number one priority at the moment, is security and privacy. The solution is volunteer impact. We do have a very highly rated tools of software, a lot of different modules. Of course, we're focusing on volunteer impact today. We do have a rating of 4.8 on the Trustpilot reviews. So we pride ourselves on those reviews from the clients. So a little bit more on security, protecting your volunteer data. As I said, it's number one priority for us. One way to understand if an organization has that as a priority is the ISO certification. So ISO 27001 is the world's best known standard for information and security management systems. ISO certification means that the VMS vendor respects all the best practices and principles enshrined in the international standard. Having the actual certificate rather than simply following the guidelines is an important distinction because it means the vendor has been audited by an independent body once a year to make sure the standards are being met. So just a quick point on that, we do have our own technology and privacy document. This is available to anyone who wants to see this, provide that to their IT team or their security team. We're happy to provide that to anyone who needs that. If you do, feel free to ask that in the chat, or you can email me after this webinar as well. So question one for everyone here to answer in the chat if you can. All you need to do is answer a number. So the question is, which problem resonates most with your organization? Is it 1, too much data entry? 2, using too many disconnected tools to do your job? 3, not enough time to lead and engage with your volunteers? 4, affordable tools leadership will approve? Or 5, insufficient security of your confidential volunteer data? It can be multiple. If you have multiple problems, feel free to answer that in the chat. Very interesting. We've had majority of people answer number 2, so too many disconnected tools to do your job. A few people answer number 3 and number 4, not enough time to lead and engage your volunteers. And finding affordable tools leadership will approve. We've had one answer for number 1, too much data entry. A few number 4s coming in again, so affordable tools leadership will approve. So as you can see, a lot of organizations, even though they're quite different and in different fields, quite similar problems arise. And you'll all be, in a similar position trying to solve those issues. So question number 2, how are you managing your volunteers currently? Is it number 1, spreadsheets, number 2, a volunteer management system, or number 3, other? So most are number 1, spreadsheets, or number 2, a volunteer management software or system. had one who's answered number 1 and 3, so on spreadsheets and other as well. Probably the most common is a volunteer management system. So perhaps organizations are looking to improve on that system and have something a little bit more detailed. Awesome. So thanks for answering question 2. We'll go to the last question here, question number 3. In your opinion, what's most at risk if a change doesn't occur sooner than later? So is it number 1, volunteer turnover or disengagement? Number 2, staff turnover or disengagement? Number 3, wasted money or budget? Number 4, damage to the organization program reputation? Or number 5, other? We've had a lot of number 1, which is volunteer turnover and disengagement. A few popping up for number 3, wasted money or budget. Number 1 and 4, so turnover and damage to reputation. We've had a few coming up with multiple, so number 1, 3, and 4. Another number 1 and 4. So as you can see, very common issues popping up for the search for that volunteer management software. And it is a common risk for those who who don't find the right software or choose the incorrect software that doesn't work for the organization or the volunteers. So we are an end-to-end volunteer management software. We obviously make things easy for the volunteer to use, and also input the data that you need. So I'll touch a little bit more on that in the next few slides. Thanks everyone for answering those questions. So just to touch a little bit more on some common issues that are coming up in the different organizations. This is quite a alarming stat, but more than half of all employees are unhappy at work because of the software tools they're using. So this could be, like we mentioned before, the disconnected tools, using too many tools to do similar things in the organization, making it harder for the staff. It could be using things like Excel that doesn't keep the privacy of information. But that's quite alarming that almost half, or more than half, sorry, of staff are unhappy with the software they're using. And to continue on that stat as well, about 1 in every 8 employees has quit a job because of mismatched software. So that's quite an interesting stat there, that 1 in 8 people think that the software they're using at their company is, reason for them to leave. So quite an alarming stat. Shows the importance of having the right software for your staff and also for your volunteers, and finding that right mix between the two. So let's get you and your team working with the tools that make you feel less frustrated and rather more empowered and more productive when you do your job. So now it's time to explore how volunteer impact can help you achieve just that. And we'll move to our demo part of the webinar. So I'm going to start with the administrator side. This is the home page for your administrators. The front page makes things easy to navigate. You've got a couple of things like the alerts, shows you birthdays, anniversaries. Also things like your expiring qualifications, what's coming up as expired. Also custom field approvals, so you can add approvals to certain things in the system. You'll also notice that I've got favorites and pin searches. This can be different based on the administrators in the system. So every administrator can have their own favorites and pin searches. And obviously that makes things easier to navigate in the system. We've also got things like the newsletter, which can be sent out to volunteers, and the news section here. We've also got the numbers on the front page. So this basically identifies your volunteers and what status they're in. You've obviously got your applicants that come in when they do that application form. An in-process stage, which is basically the vetting process, and when you review those applications. And obviously the accepted volunteers, which is all the volunteers you accept into your program. So that's a simple way to identify. We've also got the archive, which can be, rejected, resigned, moved, a number of different sub statuses inside that as well. So as I said before, it is a end-to-end volunteer management software. So I'm going to take you through the journey of the very start for a potential volunteer. So basically this is the landing page or the advertisement page. You'll obviously have your theme at the top here. You can choose different colors, pictures, videos, whatever you want to connect to this page here. This page is accessed by the volunteer via a QR code, via a link, or it can be connected to your website. So probably most commonly, there's a little button on your website similar to this one. Might be volunteer now, see volunteer opportunities. That will take them to the landing page. this landing page is 100% managed by the administrators in the system. You don't need your IT team to make updates or changes. That is easily managed by the administrators in the system. And you can advertise certain opportunities that you have. This example is shown just one database. You can have what we call an enterprise system where you advertise multiple different sub-accounts, we call them, but basically their own databases that can be managed by specific administrators. This is an example of just one of those accounts. So this has different roles. As you can see, pictures, a little bit of information on what those opportunities include. Then you could have a little bit more detail, what shifts you have upcoming for different roles, what special events you have, and a little bit of about us as well. Then you can connect your social media, your Facebook or your Twitter. So it's familiar for the potential volunteers. So once a volunteer is interested in applying, all they need to do is click this fill in application. That will take them to this page here. You can have the policies at the top. So basically, if you have any important policies that you need potential volunteers or volunteers to read and agree to, even before they apply, or at the very start of when they do apply. Basically, you can have that at the top here. You can have links to documents. And most of the time, the volunteer will be signing up to an account here. There is the option, if they have an account with another organization, they can log in with the same details. And that will basically skip the first page of the application form, which the information they would have already inputted. So once that account is created, that will take them to the application form. Now, the application form is 2 pages. The first page is the basic info, name, address, phone number. Page number 2 is the really customizable information. So what you can see here is general availability. So a potential volunteer can tick, when they're available, and this will be searchable in the system. They can also tick what opportunities they're interested in volunteering for. That's also searchable, but that basically gives you an idea of what they're interested in volunteering for. And then you can mix and match when you're rostering, or just to get an idea of what the volunteer is interested in doing. Then comes the more detailed information. Basically, you've got your qualifications. So this can be, drop down, yes, no. These little flags just across from it show that these are actually mandatory fields. So in order to apply, you need to fill out this information. Some also have an expiry date. Like I mentioned before, you can have that qualification expiring or expired come up on the database, and you can connect those qualifications to specific activities in the system. So, for example, some roles must require CPR, first aid, if you're doing a specific role. That can be any qualification, you can connect that to. But that obviously helps if you're doing that at the very start. And then, if you've got an expiry date, that can be automatically tracked in the system. Similar to that, we've got custom fields. So essentially, a custom field can be anything you want in the system, or any field you need to report on, any information you want the potential volunteers or your active volunteers to input. This all goes to their profile. This can be things like text boxes, can be drop downs, can be date fields, can also be file fields. So if you need them in this example to upload a driver's license, that can be done in that application process. they can upload that driver's license. And what you might do as well is have an approval step to that field so that an administrator needs to approve that before that is accepted into the software. That's also a mandatory field, so they'll need to upload that to submit this application. You can also add things like what languages, your references, emergency contacts, also agreements and acknowledgements, similar to the start, but if they've come this far and you need confidential agreements to be read and accepted, you can do that through the application form as well. So once the volunteer has filled that out, basically a submit application button can be pressed. That will give you a couple of options for an automated message. You can either have an automated message pop up on the home screen here. You might say, thanks for your application, here's the next steps. Or you can have an automated email letting them know that their application has been has come in, and the next steps will be this. So quite a simple process for the administrators to begin with, and that application form can be as detailed or as basic as you need it to be. Now, just a quick explanation on that application form. Each sub-account will have 3 different application forms. So an example I've seen how different organizations use this. Volunteer 1 might be your new volunteers, so it might have a lot of details that you need. Volunteer 2 might be all your existing volunteers. So you've obviously got some information of existing volunteers. You might do an import, for an example, when your database is just starting up. And your volunteer 2 application form for those existing volunteers, it might simply be, 3 questions, all uploading forms. So the volunteer will obviously do that themselves, just to make that process a little bit more simple for the existing volunteers in the system. So once that application is submitted, that will go to one of these statuses here. Most of the time it will come in as an applicant, and you can click on that number, go in and view that application. You can edit that if you do see any errors or anything like that. Then when you're ready for the next step, you can individually or you can bulk send out an email or text message. This, as an example, you might select a template acknowledgement of application. This code is going to be the first name of the volunteer. You can do attachments, things like that. But as you can see, very simple way to communicate with those volunteers via the email tab directly from the status. Once you're ready to move them to the next stage, you can move them to in process, or you can simply move them to accepted. Obviously, if they're not accepted into the program, you can make them archived. So once that information is in the system as well, that will create a profile for the volunteer. Now, this profile can be updated by the admins, or the volunteers can go into their profile and update that information as well. On the dashboard here, you've got all the contact information. You can have certain fields at the very top, like the emergency contact, whatever fields you find necessary to be at the top of the page there. You can also see their contributions, different activities that they've done in the past. And something that's quite popular with the volunteers is the badges at the moment. So these badges can be created by your own organization. It can be number of hours, years of service, even things like your qualification or your e-learning training in the system as well. As I said, information can be updated, like the contact information, which volunteers can do on their profile. Custom fields can be viewed and updated at any point as well. Certain custom fields can be made private. So if you do have sensitive information that you want to make private, that is possible when you are creating that field. Same with the qualifications that can be updated in the profile. As you can see here, there's a few approval steps that have been added that can be accepted from the profile as well. You can see what roles they're interested in volunteering for. Same with the general availability. That can be viewed and searched for in the system as well. Now you can communicate with a volunteer from their profile. This can be email or text message. Email and text message history is also saved on the profile as well as on the profile. There's an overall view for this so that all emails and text messages, specific admins can see who has sent those. And obviously it improves things like double handling, double checking that which admin has communicated this with the volunteer, and things like that are confidential can be saved as a note log as well. So if you have a phone call with the volunteer and they provided some information that you would like other admins to view or things that you might find important, you can add that as a note log. The volunteer is not going to see that information. Only the other admins will be able to see that. Now you can also roster directly from a profile. This example might be when you have a regular. So they might work every Monday and every Friday. So basically you can filter those shifts down. Every Monday and Friday shift will pop up, the ones you filtered. So you can individually sign those up, or in bulk, you can sign that volunteer up for all those shifts. So like I said, a good way to start building out that roster, if you do have some regulars who are doing the same shift, every week or, every second week, you can schedule them on quite easily through their profile here. You will be able to see a schedule for the volunteer. It comes up in a quite neat monthly calendar schedule. This can be emailed to the volunteer. The volunteer will have access to this once they are accepted into the program. We also have the option for the volunteers to connect their personal calendars. So Outlook, Google, Yahoo, whatever calendar they're using. That can be connected to the platform. So for example, if a Wednesday shift has been updated, they'll get notified on their phone. And obviously people will use their phones a lot these days. So that will be an easy way to communicate any changes or any roster adjustments that are, on the day or that week, just ensuring that those volunteers will get that notification. But that's a simple way to connect their calendars. Now, you can see a volunteer's hours from their profile. Administrators can also come in and start the clock. So we've got the time clock that's available for volunteers. Administrators can also start that clock from the profile here. That time clock is available via a QR code, via a website as well. And then you will get alerted of every volunteer that is currently on the clock as well. So that's really important for emergencies and any situations that arise. You can also create new time log entries. So that, as you can see here, there's a number of time log entries. You can do that individually on their profile. You can also do a bulk time log entry for your volunteers as well. So that would be, 5 people who've come Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. You can bulk do a time log entry for those 5 volunteers. Volunteers can also log on and do a time log entry. That would be when the shift is finished. And you can ask certain questions when they finish that shift, also with the time clock. That might be, incidents, how many interactions you've had, anything that you would find necessary for reporting. That can be done in the system. On reporting, obviously you can do a number of reports in the system, the schedule reports, hours reports, and the feedback fields that I mentioned of the volunteers coming in. You can also do volunteer hours reports. So this would be the specific volunteer. Volunteers can also come in and do that as well. The last thing I'll mention on the volunteer profile is the committees. You can basically create different committee groups for volunteers to be a part of. So you can see there's a number of groups here. This volunteer is a part of the office assistance group. That will give you a way to categorize certain volunteers, but also give them an option to contact other committee members directly from the portal or from the app. Now, I'll just touch briefly on the communication tab. But basically, with the communication tab, you can save a number of searches that you might be doing pretty commonly. You can also filter out certain groups. This can be multiple. So for an example, if I want to see who is available on a Monday, I can add that field. But I also want to see who's interested in doing a gift shop role, but also a guest services role. So I want to see who's interested in those two, who's available on a Monday. As you can see, 13 people have come up from that search. That gives you a way to kind of filter down the people in the software that you're looking for. Those 13 people, I know they're available on a Monday and they're interested in doing 2 roles that I need filled. From that, you can select a template. It might be a schedule reminder. It might be, something that you've saved here. And that email can be sent out to all 13 of those volunteers. And you can easily fill that role as well. So a number of different filters can be used on the system. You can also send out to administrators as well. As I said earlier, you've got your email history. So you can see the details of that email and who that has been sent to. Very similar system with the text messaging. You can filter out who you need to. And this example is all volunteers who have opted in to the text messaging system. You can set a prefix, and then you can send out a text message through here. You can also see the text message history of the organization as well. Now, I'll briefly touch on the rostering system. There's a couple of different ways to do this, but basically you can do an unscheduled list. So that's basically the activities that don't have a start or end time that you can schedule for. You can also do from a scheduled list. So we've got a color-coded system. So this one's a very simple one, but basically the blue is the shifts that you have covered. You have enough volunteers in those roles. The red is you don't. So you can simply click on the day that you want to see. You can see the 2 roles that don't have enough volunteers. You can remove volunteers if you need to as well. Basically, if I want to assign volunteers, I can filter things out. So things like must be qualified, must be signed up. Also, no overlapping assignments. You can search for all those volunteers. You can individually assign, or you can bulk assign as well. So as you can see, a nice simple system to do those rosters. Now, there is a couple of different ways to do that. Basically, you can have volunteers either sign up themselves or they can express interest. So depending on which way you do that, the administrator will see who's expressed interest and will select the volunteer from that. Or the other way simply is the volunteer signs up for the vacant shifts as well. So you can see a couple of months in advance, and you can do that roster in advance as well. Now, I'll briefly touch on the reporting of the system. So basically, we've got the hours reports. So this can show you a number of different built-in reports of all things hours. We've also got a nice detailed comparisons chart of the hours and feedback trend. So the feedback fields are those fields that I mentioned before, that the volunteers are entering information once they do finish their shift. Here is basically interactions and inquiries. So as you can see, does you a nice comparisons chart there, which can be exported. There's a number of built-in reports already in the system as well. We've also got built-in reports that are scheduled reports. So this will show you the full schedule of all volunteers that have been rostered on. And obviously that can be exported as well. With reporting, as well as the built-in reports, we do have what we call a raw data report. So that basically makes it possible to report on every single field in the system, including the fields that you have created. So all the information that you want to see can be selected when that report's done, and all that information will be shown here. So obviously that can be saved or exported, and you can see all those profiles for the fields that you've ticked. But as you can see, it's quite a detailed reporting system. Now, I've given a kind of detailed overview of the administration side. I'm also going to show you the volunteer side. Just a very quick overview. Obviously, the volunteer side is a little bit more simple. It's very simplified for the volunteer. They can access this via a desktop, but most commonly it is used by an app, which is My Impact from the App Store or the Play Store. When they log in, they'll see their upcoming shifts, have a look at their overview of their hours, see their badges, social media, newsletters, personal messages. They can access the files, so you can select certain files to be uploaded onto the system as well. Now, volunteers can have a look at opportunities that are available to sign up for via the calendar view. So they can click on the day and the activity they want to sign up for from that view, or they can do a list view, which basically goes into a little bit more detail of those shifts. So you can have information on those activities. As you can see, a lot of those shifts are full already, but basically they can click this sign up button and sign up for that activity. When they do sign up and have that on their schedule, that will come up with their schedule here. They have the option to click this remove button if they do need to cancel a shift. Now, this can be configured. So for example, if you want to take this remove button off 24 hours before a shift starts, that is possible. So you can just notify them in the description that more than 24 hours notice is required for cancellation. You can also get rid of this remove button completely if you don't want to give volunteers that option to remove. They can also see that monthly schedule directly from here, like I mentioned before. That's also, like I said, they can connect their Google, Yahoo, Outlook, whatever calendar they use, to the system. So this will be shown on their phone in their calendar, and notifications will pop up on the phone. Now, this is just an example of how they would log hours, basically after the fact. So when their shift is done, they can log into the app, log the hours, and answer those questions, those feedback fields that I mentioned before. These are all mandatory. So these questions will need to be answered before you actually log those hours. And they can see historic hours as well. They can see reports of their own hours in the system. So obviously that's quite handy if they need proof of hours for any other organizations, or Centrelink or that kind of thing. They can also contact, like I said earlier, you can contact other committee members directly from the system, or other admins. And just one other thing I'll mention as well, they can also do e-learning training from the system. So this can be agreements, waivers, symbol training like the hand hygiene, and you can have certain questions. You can embed videos. You can have, multiple choice questions connected, but all that training is available from their profile. And as you can see, much more simple view as a volunteer, and that's deliberate. We don't want to make that transition difficult for the volunteer. Nice and simple to basically sign up for your roles, see your schedule, remove yourself, cancel shifts, all in the one place for your volunteers. Awesome. That is it for the demo. I'll head back to the slides, and we're almost ready for question time as well. So I'm just going to play out a couple of different testimonials. So this is from organizations and clients around the world, just their feedback on volunteer impact and what their favorite part of the system is.
So why did I select this product? It integrated with my background check product. I can tell you that the sales and customer support people are outstanding. Direct contact with a person that's talking me through all of the steps, doing training for us and my whole team. And inside the product is so much help. 24/7, you can chat with a person who's really a person. At 3 o'clock in the morning when we were first converting, I was talking, I was playing, I was trying to figure out something. I hopped onto the chat and I was thinking, there's nobody going to be around at 3 o'clock in the morning, Eastern Standard Time. And lo and behold, within a couple minutes, I was talking to a guy who was on the other side of the globe, who was answering all of my questions for me. It is fun and kind, and I don't ever feel stupid. So I can't say enough about the customer support and the sales part.
Yeah, it was value for money and on budget for what we wanted. Easy to implement. We had 300 volunteers already on the books. So we were able to extract the information into a spreadsheet, and then they took it away and uploaded all the information in the right place, gave the usernames and the passwords so that we could then write out to the volunteers with. Better Impact is I call it a cradle to grave. It's an application right the way through a volunteering journey. So once they do their application form, they're already setting up their volunteer page. But the team were very, very supportive. As I said already, very, very supportive.
Why did we go with Volunteer Impact? Because there were a few other options out there for us. It's definitely an affordable management system. It was something, it actually cost us less to move towards Better Impact than it was with our former system. There were a lot of volunteer-centered features, allowing the volunteers to own their own experience. And that was something that we saw right off the bat. We had heard of some great features like self-scheduling, and how volunteers can go in and update and change their own addresses, schedule time off for vacations. So these were things that were definitely selling points for us. My impact page gives the volunteers the opportunity to absolutely own their experience with us. Everything that they need is at their fingertips. If they need extra resources or easy ways to communicate with us, it's all there through that.
I've been using Better Impact since about 2016, 2017, and I absolutely love it. My favorite part of the system, and it's really hard to actually just come up with one thing, but I would certainly focus on the personal profile reporting. You can fully customize it to get as much data as you need, as much information as you need, or as little as you need in that one report. It's incredible.
Awesome. So as you can see there, a nice variety of things of the software and different features that are, the most popular and people's favorite features. So as you can see, the different features work for different organizations. It's fully customizable, so you can make it work for your organization and your needs as well. So a few of those favorites were the support that we offer. Andy is a big part of that in Australia and New Zealand, but we do have amazing support. We want to make the process and the transition as simple and as good as possible for you. So as I said before, we do have very good reviews and highly raved about software. It is 4.8 average on Trustpilot at the moment, over 300 reviews over the years. And definitely support and security and privacy is a big part of that, and also the features of our end-to-end software as well. So a little bit about our story. So Better Impact actually started by a fluke. Our CEO, Tony, had a passion project of building a web-based volunteer management software solution for a residential hospice. He founded and birthed. From that, he basically founded and birthed the beginning of a global "We're Here to Help" company of Better Impact. So we've been operating for 20 plus years. We're a small company with a global impact. We have offices in UK, Canada, US, and Australia. We have customers all around the globe. We specialize in volunteer management software, volunteer impact. We also provide donor impact, client impact, and member impact solutions that integrate with volunteer impact. So if you do want any information on those modules, feel free to reach out and ask about that. But a main point is we're here to help company. We're always willing to help our clients and organizations, and that includes the process of looking for volunteer management software.